What's up, everybody? This is Alex Christoforou with the Duran, and I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran, and today we're going to be taking a look at Qatar leaving OPEC. All right, Alexander, we did a video a couple of weeks ago on OPEC Plus with Russia and Saudi Arabia, and we just got shocking news, I would say, that Qatar will be leaving OPEC effective January 1st. What is behind this decision? What does this mean for OPEC? What does this mean for the oil market, for the energy market? And why is Qatar doing this?
Right. I am very glad that you brought OPEC Plus up, because to my mind, that is what all this is about. Now, there's been various analyses that you can see in various parts of the media, some of which say, that Qatar isn't really very important in the oil market because it doesn't produce that much oil. Its oil production has fallen, and it makes most of its money now by selling natural gas, which is true. And they're also saying that Qatar is unhappy because the Saudis have been ramping up production to satisfy Donald Trump, which is also true. But both of these, in my opinion, miss the fundamental point. Qatar is a founding member of OPEC. It is a member of it is a key player in the Gulf. It is one of the richest states in the Gulf. It has always played a central role in OPEC. However small its production of oil is, for Qatar to secede from OPEC now is a huge thing. The reason it is happening is because I think the Qataris calculate that OPEC, which is a Saudi-led alliance of oil-producing states, is losing traction, and the thing that really matters is OPEC Plus, which is in the process of being formed, and of which Russia will be the leader. Now, Qatar has very good relations with Russia, so in a sense, it is removing itself from an oil alliance with Saudi Arabia, led by Saudi Arabia, which is Qatar's enemy, so that he can maneuver closer to Russia. That is what I think this is all about.
So how does Russia see this move? Does Russia realize this? Russia is also going to it does have and it will keep very good ties with Saudi Arabia, obviously. I think we saw that at the G20. How are they looking at this as they see Qatar moving away from OPEC?
Right. First of all, the Russians understand this extremely well. The Russians are in contact with Saudi Arabia and they're in contact with Qatar, and they know exactly what the mind of the people in Qatar is and exactly why they're doing it. They have a much better understanding of this than people in the media, in my opinion, do. So they understand it, and I think, though they will never say it publicly, they quietly welcome it. Because, of course, despite the fact that the Russians have forged this alliance with the Saudis at the moment, they don't, I think, fully trust the Saudis, and I think they will be pleased to see Saudi Arabia being taken down a further peg in a scenario which will only increase their own dominant position in the oil market, because it is quite clear now that it is no longer OPEC that is going to be the real cartel controlling the oil market. It is going to be OPEC Plus, with the Russians at the center, playing countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia off against each other.
That's got to infuriate the U.S. What is the U.S. reaction to all of this?
Well, I'm not sure that we talked about the Russians understanding it. I'm not sure that the U.S., which is at the moment in a state of some confusion, fully understands it. But I think when they do, they will be very concerned and angry about it. But what realistically can they do? The U.S. could have acted as a mediator between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. That was the policy of the previous Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, who did not want to see the US coming down entirely on Saudi Arabia's side in this quarrel and getting involved in a Saudi conflict with Iran. Since Rex Tillerson has gone, the US has completely committed itself to Saudi Arabia, and it is completely backing Saudi Arabia in its quarrel with Iran. So not surprisingly, a country like Qatar, which is looking at this and which is wary of the Saudis, no longer trusts the US and is distancing itself from Saudi Arabia and by extension from the US, and is drifting slowly, well actually not slowly, quickly towards Russia. It's unsurprising, and I don't think the US can do much about it.
Do you anticipate more defections from OPEC?
Yes, I think over time more will come. I think there will be a core, which will be countries like the Saudi Arabia and the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. I think they will stand firm. But I think other countries will start peeling away. And I think you're going to start seeing countries like Venezuela and countries like Angola and quite possibly countries like Indonesia, major oil producers. They're going to be starting to talk more to the Russians than the Saudis, and they're going to start bypassing Riyadh and dealing more and more with Moscow.
So Qatar was, I mean, you could say that it's probably the first domino to fall in what will be a very different oil market controlled by Russia, true?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that for the next 20 years, over the next few years and for the next 20 years, we will see Russia replacing Saudi Arabia as the big swing producer. I have no doubt of it. I mean, it's already clear. It's already clear, by the way, that Russian oil reserves have been underestimated so that they can continue producing oil at roughly the levels that they're doing at the moment and probably increase it even further for what is, to all intents and purposes, an indefinite period of time. They have gigantic shale resources, much bigger than the US does, by the way, that they're not yet exploited. And they will remain the energy superpower for the foreseeable future, and they will dominate the oil market as a consequence.
What does this mean long-term, medium to long-term, for the dollar reserve currency?
Well, I'm very glad you said that, because, of course, the whole dollar reserve currency thing has arisen because of the close relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia and the other key oil producers. Now, this is constantly disputed, but it really cannot be stressed too strongly that one of the things that keeps the dollar in the position of the world's reserve currency is that any country around the world that buys oil up to now has had to buy it in dollars. And since oil is the world's most widely traded commodity, and since no industrial economy can exist without oil, that means that every country in the world has had to hold some dollars, even countries like North Korea. Now, if that changes, if there is no longer a situation where the dominant oil producer is Saudi Arabia, agreeing to sell its oil for dollars, but is Russia, which has its own currency, which it has aspirations to achieve reserve status for, and which is now closely linked to China, whose RMB, whose currency, the RMB, the yuan, as it's sometimes called, also has aspirations to become the world's dominant currency. Then, as I said, it becomes very difficult to see how the reserve currency position of the dollar can be sustained for much longer. I think we are much closer to seeing the end of this. That's to say, the dollar's dominance, than I think some people realize.
Would it be fair to say that it would be China that would step in to fill that void, that China would be the most logical choice to backstop, to be that currency for oil trading?
Yes,
or at least one in a basket of currencies.
I think it will be a basket of currencies, but I think China will be the dominant player in it. I think Russia and its currency, the ruble, much maligned and much ridiculed, but getting more and more stable all the time, and more stronger and harder as a currency all the time. I think the ruble will play a role. I think there will be a basket of currencies, but obviously, because China is so much the biggest economy involved in this group, because China is Russia's major partner as an energy importer. I mean, China will be importing, before very long, the bulk of Russia's energy exports. It will be paying for them in RMBs, in its own currency. It will be buying oil from other places, or oil and energy from other places, from places like Angola, for example, Indonesia, because it'll be the biggest economy and the biggest oil market. And inevitably, the basket of currencies that is created around it will be led by China and its currency, and that will slowly emerge as the dominant currency in this field. The other thing to say is I think you will see a bigger role for gold.
For gold.
Yes, because the Chinese and the Russians have been stockpiling gold, and I think that though they will not put gold, they will not make their currencies directly convertible to gold in the way that the dollar was. I think they will highlight the fact that they have increasing gold reserves and that there's a growing fast.
All right, interesting. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like that video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video, and visit the Duran shop. Pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran. For the month of December, 20% off all merchandise. And in the description box, you will find links to our PayPal and Patreon pages for you to donate to the Duran so we can create videos just like this for you. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you once again. Until next time, take care.